Hello and welcome to episode number 24 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Dan, and today we have a conversation with Foxbox Games. All right, so if you're watching right now, you may notice that it's just me right now. So it's just me actually. When we recorded this episode, when we interviewed Keegan, who we're having on the show today, we kind of skipped over doing an intro and an outro. So kind of doing this here last minute, but that's all right. So so Jim and I sit down with a conversation with Keegan. You can find him on Instagram at Foxbox Games, and we're going to link all of his socials in the descriptions below, so you can find him on pretty much all the social platforms. We had a really fun conversation getting to know Keegan a little bit. Keegan is a card game player, just like Jim and I. So as you can imagine, we had quite a bit to talk about. And we had a really fun conversation. Keegan's a fantastic guy. And honestly, it was really awesome getting to hear him just honestly gush over card games, kind of like the same way that we do. So, you know what, with all that even being said, I'm just going to get out of the way. And then we'll get right into the conversation so you guys can check it out. All right, hope you enjoy. All right, so today we are joined by Keegan. Keegan's part of Specular Games, some other creators that are kind of not too far away from us in the Chicagoland area. Yeah. But you're actually in Chicago, aren't you, Keegan?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So, yeah, we're not.
Yeah, we're not.
So, okay. Question for you. Since you actually are in downtown, okay, I'm sure you have friends or maybe even family who live in the suburbs. And when someone asks, where are you from? If they say Chicago and they're not actually in Chicago proper, what's your response to that?
I mean, I'm not like native Chicago. I grew up in small town Kansas. Okay. And so the concept of suburbs like blew my mind. I was like, what is a suburb? And like the first time I figured out like what a suburb was when I had an ex-girlfriend that lived in Minneapolis, and I went up to visit her, and she's like, yeah, but you can just go to like the next neighborhood over through the interstate. And I was like, the what now? There's like, you have to take the interstate to drive 2 miles to the next neighborhood. That's fucking stupid. And then I was like, oh, this is how burbs work in the city. But no, I hear people say like this thing happened in Chicago, and I look up and I see it's like actually in a burb. I'm like, it's not Chicago, man. Come on. It's like my wife's parents are like super like Chicago's a dangerous city, and they would like when we first moved here they would send us like reports like this happened in Chicago, and we look it up. We're like, that's the equivalent of saying like a shooting happened in Topeka but it happened in Kansas City, Missouri. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's funny because I've got friends and family who are like, if we go out of town, we get chatting up with people, get conversations started, and they say, where are you from? They say, oh, we're from Chicago. And I'm like, no, dude, you're not from Chicago. Like, you're outside Chicago, but we're not actually in Chicago. But see, like, if you say, because, we're in New Lenox. Mm-hmm. So if we tell people, yeah, we're in New Lenox, nobody knows where that is.
Yeah.
So what they like to do is they just trick themselves and say, well, if we say New Lenox, nobody knows. But then if you say Chicago, then everybody knows, oh, yeah, I know Chicago. Well, then it's easy. Then just say Chicagoland. Just say Chicagoland. I was
going to say, you could also, if you know that the person is also from Illinois, you could be like, oh, we're over by Joliet.
Because That's true. Yeah.
Most of Illinois knows where Joliet is. Yeah. Yeah. But anyone outside of it's like, yeah, we're from Chicago.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, usually people hear like you're from Kansas, it's like, oh, Kansas City. And you're like, no, Kansas. No, there's a lot more state, and it's all awful.
It's funny because I actually have family in Kansas, and I also have family in Minneapolis area, Minnesota too.
Oh, weird.
So yeah, like I know people there, and I know people there.
I was gonna say I was recently in Kansas visiting my family, and we had to drive about an hour and a half to get to a Walmart to hang out. It was like we're in the middle of nowhere. It was just a little town off the side of the highway, and it's just like that's where they're at.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
So Keegan, tell us and tell our audience a little bit about you for people who don't know who you are. Who are you, and kind of what are you doing in the tabletop space?
I'm just a dude in my life. No, I grew up in Kansas, but then my wife and I moved. Well, then girlfriend, we moved to Chicago about 6 years ago because we were both wanting to pursue theater. I was an improv kid, and she was more of like a straight theater person. So we came to the city for that. We also just wanted to get out of Kansas.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, for people that like it, enjoy your Wizard of Oz area, but don't live there. But I got into tabletop like really hard, probably like 10 to 12 years ago. There's a channel on YouTube called Game Grumps, which people probably know.
Yes.
But they had a small side channel called Table Flip for a bit. And I watched that by accident once, and they were playing Shadows over Camelot and Betrayal at House on the Hill. And I was like, these are cool. I want to get one of these. And I went to a game store and they had them both. I didn't know which one to pick, so I bought both.
That's always the right choice.
Oh, yeah. Once you get in this hobby, you realize I can just buy another one. It's fine. But the game that really got me into the hobby, like hardcore, was Castles of Burgundy. That game made me realize like how cool games can be and how much can happen, especially with like a simplistic rule set. And a boring beige looking game with basically paper for playmats can be amazing. And it just went all downhill / uphill from there.
I just want to point out, this is now the third person we've had that has talked about early in their career of board games, Betrayal on House of the Hill.
You're right.
It's my top 5 for a reason. Guys, go check it out.
Seriously, every person that we've had on, they have at least mentioned Betrayal.
And have you played it yet?
No, still not.
Dan hasn't played it yet.
It's fun. It's super fun. It's like the ones we're hearing a lot on Specular too, where it's House on the Hill, Castles of Burgundy, Carcassonne, Ticket to Ride, and Catan. Those are like the 5 that we hear the most.
Yeah. Those are like those are big gateway games. There's like those have got to be like the top 5.
The only one I haven't played from that list was the Burgundy something.
Castles of Burgundy.
Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah, I haven't played that one.
Yeah, I haven't played that one either. Can you tell us a little bit about that game?
I highly recommend it. Even though I've been in this hobby for this long, it's still my number 3 favorite game of all time.
Really?
Half for the nostalgia and half because the game is just good. It looks ugly as sin because it's a Stefan Feld game and all of his games are ugly. Because I guess that has to be. But the whole
our
game,
special guest, Stefan.
I stand by my statement, Stefan. I'm not backing down. The game's great, though. It's really easy. You're a prince in the Burgundy region of France, and you're building your kingdom out. And if you're into tile placement and dice for actions, it's basically the entire game. You roll 2 dice on your turn, and those are your 2 workers for your actions, and you pick one of 3 or 4 actions to do. I haven't played it in a bit, but use the dice to do the action, and you can draft tiles from the center board based off the number you roll, and that becomes part of like the city, like the tiles in your pool. Or you can use the die to move that tile from your pool into your city, and the color of the tile and the number on the dice have to match up with the location on the board. And anytime you place a tile, you almost immediately get points for it. So it's super gratifying to get points for almost every little action you do.
Okay.
And then you can also spend your die to get 2 workers, and the workers let you mitigate your dice rolls by +1 or -1, either direction. And you can spend as many as you want on your die rolls to really mitigate your shitty rolls anytime you want. And the whole game then just lasts 5 phases around and then 5 rounds total. But it sounds like a lot, like technically it's 25 turns, but it moves so fast.
Right.
And it's just super gratifying, like taking tiles, placing tiles down, and it plays up to 4, but I think 2-player is like the perfect sweet spot for it. Oh, nice. Because if you play 4-player, you see every tile every game. But if you play 2-player, you won't see everything. So you don't know what's going to pop up.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's a lot of people always looking for a 2-player game as well. So was it Castles of Burgundy as well?
Castles of Burgundy.
Castles of Burgundy.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have to get that one added to the list for sure.
For sure. It's such a good, like, meaty 2-player game. It's great.
Okay. So and we kind of asked this to everybody too, but what was the game? And I know you've talked about a few here, but what would you say is like the game that really got you to dive deep into the hobby?
Probably Castles.
Okay.
I want to say Castles, like that just because, like, I guess it's like gamer brain game, like definitely Castles of Burgundy, but I think games like playing with friends. We played a lot of Munchkin in college, which I know is like kind of a game. It becomes like, it's like really fun at the beginning, but then 3 hours later, like, I just want this to end.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that feeling.
But just like, I think for me, just like any game that I got to play with my friends and it ended up like sinking hours into the night and we didn't know where the time went. I think that like mentality itself got me into the hobby more than anything. Because like me and my friends are also super big video gamers. Like we played video games all the time. We had favorite games. We would do game marathons or like team up to play like old NES games just to try to beat Ninja Gaiden, which is impossible. But
good luck.
But then like we switched to board games and it's just so much more gratifying because you're actually doing a lot more interaction with each other at the table.
Yeah. So that's a perfect segue into this next question then. So if you've played a bunch of these video games and then also these tabletop games, like which experience do you prefer then?
If I want to do something on my own, I will play a video game. I like solo board gaming. Like, spoiler for later, I love Arkham Horror, the card game. And I love soloing. I love spoiling that game. I love playing that game solo. And I used to play Root solo a lot too before before Leader Games officially printed the better bot. Instead of the bad bot that came with the base game, I was playing that bot project through BGG a bunch and talking with the creator of it. And I played that a whole bunch because I thought it was great. But if I want to play something solo at this point, I'm more than likely going to lean into a video game that I can get immersed in, like Persona 5 or Hollow Knight, or like my two go-tos. But if I want to do something with people, it's 100% of the time going to be let's play a board game rather than let's playing a couch co-op or something.
Yeah, for sure. Couch co-ops are fun. Like they are, but it's like
Halo.
Oh yeah. No, that's true.
That's different though.
Yeah, that is true. But it's like those experiences that you have just honestly just hanging out with your friends and even family. It's just I don't think you can get those experiences anywhere other than like a tabletop game.
No, I agree. There's like I gushed about games when I first got hired at my recent job because they wanted to know like what my hobbies were, and I have like this really cheesy, dumb like thing for board games. It's like, you get that out of a board game? That's bizarre. I'm like, I know, but it's how I feel about it. Like board games lead you to like this really weird, unique world where everyone is living in the moment in a whole different universe where nothing matters, but you're all agreeing to follow rules that really don't affect your life. But for some reason, you all are okay with agreeing to a rule set that don't have any long-term effects, but you just want to be in that world together. And you just kind of just makes this magical bubble realm where you all just exist for 2 hours together in this space.
Mm-hmm. Now that's interesting. That's an interesting way of thinking about it.
It is.
But so, you know what, like, yeah, but seriously, like you say that and it's like, why can't so many other things just be like, we have even a minor rule set that we just all agree upon. And
sounds like laws. It sounds like we do live in that kind of, Dan.
I'm more saying that we agree upon
that, and one's more fun than the other. It's just like, and with like video games, you get like a set of rules that you really can't break because it's the way the game is built. You can't like, you're playing Super Mario or something, for example, you can't just decide to start punching things because that's not how the game functions. So you can't willingly cheat the game. Where you willingly can cheat a board game. No one's telling you can't.
Right.
But everyone's agreeing not to.
Yeah, and like 10 different groups can play the same board game 10 different ways.
Oh yeah.
Like with 10 different house rules about, no, this is how we play. This is how we play. I mean, like seriously, like how many times have you played like Uno and like in this house, this is how we do it. And you know what I mean? Like it's...
Or Monopoly, if you land on free parking, you get all the money in the middle.
Wait, that's not a thing?
I didn't even know that was a thing. Just kidding. So, yeah. All right. So how I think kind of how we got turned on to what you were doing is not a couple of days ago, I think it was. But I've been seeing you post quite a bit about Arkham Horror, the card game. So how did you get starting playing that game?
I grew up. Yeah, I grew up being an LCG kid. I played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh and a lot of Pokemon growing up. And then I quit both. But then in my junior year of college, me and my roommates kind of like rediscovered Yu-Gi-Oh, and we went really hard into Yu-Gi-Oh again and would go to like regional tournaments and stuff and had a lot of fun with it. We had a closet full of tins from like the collector's tins. And I just remembered how much I loved card games at that point. And then we moved to Chicago. I sold my Yu-Gi-Oh collection off because I wasn't enjoying the game anymore because it just ended up not being fun with all the new stuff and all the power creep. But I always leaned towards card games more than anything. Mm-hmm. And then I heard about LCGs and I told myself I can't get invested in another card game again because I know how much of a money sink is going to be. Mm-hmm. But I was reading more about LCGs and realizing like it is nowhere near as horrendously offensive as a CCG or a TCG. Right. Because whatever you buy, you are going to get the exact same thing that as everyone else is going to get. There's no rarity stuff to worry about. There's no third market you have to worry about, except for Arkham Horror with the Mythos packs for a hot minute. That was the third market of nightmares. Yep.
There's some of them are
still some. Yep. Which the new release model for that for Arkham is going to fix that whole thing, I hope. But
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But March, then my wife was having me watch all of the MCU movies. I'm not a huge superhero fan, but she's like, we're going to watch all the MCU movies from the beginning and go through them all. Wow. And I was having a lot of fun watching them. Mm-hmm. And then
you started playing Marvel Champions and heard about that.
Well, that was the thing. I saw Marvel, and then I was like, but they also make like Fantasy Flight also makes Arkham. Yep. And I was like, I need to pick one or the other. And I can't get invested in both.
But why?
Because that completionist mindset will drive me nuts, and I need to have everything for both of them, and it's too much.
Well, especially now, like if you come in now, like Arkham Horror's been going for a while.
Yeah.
Marvel Champions is also hasn't been going as long, but there's still a lot of content out there for Marvel.
Marvel, I feel like releases more than Arkham does.
Yes.
It has something to do like every month.
They do now, yes.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
And that was the thing. So I have to make a decision. So I was doing a lot of research into both games, and Arkham drew me in more because I saw how story based it was. Because I know Marvel is very much like everything's a one shot, it seems like, and the story doesn't really matter. It's just make your deck, beat the game. I looked at Lord of the Rings for a little bit too, but I was like, this has been even longer, and I don't want to try to hunt things down. So I bought the core set and being like, I hope I don't like this because I don't want to get invested in a card game. And that was March, and now it is August, and I own everything except for 3 promos.
Okay. I don't even know how much stuff there is, but I know it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Dude.
I bought a giant wooden organizer to keep all the scenario cards in. I have binders for every investigator class. My wife got me a bunch of Arkham Horror stuff for my birthday, like upgrade things. So I've gone deep down the Arkham rabbit hole.
Yep. So what about Lord of the Rings? Did you only get the core set for that?
I didn't even bother picking it up because it was one of those like, I'm scared I'm going to like it and want more of it. But then I also know they made a digital version of Lord of the Rings that's on the Switch.
Which is not the same, but it's similar.
Yeah, I feel like I would want to try that out first to see if I even like the game. Because I know from like some of the friends I've met through Instagram, through Arkham, they've also played Lord of the Rings. And they're like, this game is much harder than Arkham. Like the game definitely feels like you're doing a deck builder puzzle and you need to figure out the exact things you need to beat these scenarios.
And that's him. That's totally Jim.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah,
I really love the Lord of the Rings card game.
And we haven't even really gotten into the theory crafting or deck building aspect of it. Yeah. We really haven't. But
that's my forte.
Yeah. Ever since like whenever we play Magic or any other card game, he's always figuring out, theory crafting about what deck he wants to build.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Kitty.
Oh, hi.
She's probably going to be joining us for a little bit.
She's like, what's that, meow?
She randomly pops in.
So you mentioned storytelling a little bit when talking about Arkham. So is that is that kind of the reason you decided to go with Arkham? Because I mean, you kind of touched on like three kind of big LCGs. We've got Arkham Horror, Marvel Champions, and then Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is the oldest, been out for 10 years now. Arkham Horror is right in the middle, and the Marvel Champions is the newest. Are there other reasons kind of you went with Arkham Horror outside of the storytelling, or was that probably like the biggest reason you went that way?
That's probably the biggest reason. I like the aesthetic. Like I mentioned, like I'm not a big superhero person and like comic book person. Like it's not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lord of the Rings, I'm also not like hugely invested in the IP. Like I like the IP, but I'm not like diehard in the lore or anything. Arkham, legit, probably just the aesthetic. Like I don't know a whole lot of like Lovecraft lore either, but I naturally just love horror movies, and like Halloween's my favorite season, and just like the fall and everything, and just the aesthetic of the game, I think just lended itself towards just the weird stuff that I'm normally into anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I've got all three. Not all of them. I don't have everything.
We dabble.
I have a good amount of Lord of the Rings. At this point, I think I have all of Marvel Champions. And then Arkham Horror, I also have quite a bit. And I'm slowly getting, everything for Arkham Horror and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But I think Arkham Horror was the first one that I picked up. And I remember, and I'm not a big horror guy. I just remember looking into it. Like, I don't know much about, HP, Lovecraft, or the Cthulhu mythos. My big thing was I just saw the card game. I'm like, okay, the card game, I'm going to look into it more. Right? I'm going to look into it more. So I looked into it a little bit. And then, I heard a lot about the storytelling aspect. So I picked up the core set. I think the first time I played it was solo. And that was one of the big things for me. I'm like, these tabletop games that I can play by myself and also have the experience with a bunch of other people. I mean, I'm all about that. So I've played the opening scenario at least 4 different times. Played it solo. I played with him, and I played with my wife and my brother-in-law. Yeah. And each time I'm like, I know what's going to happen in the main, like the storyline aspect. Yep. But I feel like each time I'm like, I'm reading the cards, so I'm like, I'm getting into it, right? And I am, and like I love that. So I really like the role playing aspect a little bit of getting into the character. Mm-hmm. But something to me like that that's a new experience, even though it's the same box basically. Like sign me up. Like I'm all about that.
Yeah, because like you're saying, so you played it multiple times, and there's a lot of different decks that you can also be playing to start with.
Yeah.
So it can even change up your experience with that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So what's now after playing Arkham for however long you've been playing it? What's one of your favorite things about the game in general?
The investigators, I think, is the coolest part of the game. I do appreciate also the fact that you can replay scenarios a lot. I've replayed the first scenario of Carcosa I don't know how many times because I use that as a deck test scenario where I just run that to see how good my deck functions. And even then, like just that first scenario in base box, like the Carcosa base box, there's enough variability in there that I don't know what's going to happen. Like the rooms change. And even like if you buy the return twos add a whole bunch of other rooms into that you don't know what it's going to be. Yeah. Basically new game plus. But the investigators hands down are my favorite parts. And like, I was just chatting with our like LCG fellowship group that I just got added to yesterday on Instagram. And we were chatting about favorite investigators and favorite investigator class. And we were talking about it. And one person made the point that was, I feel like I know my favorite, but then I play something else and that's my favorite. And like, that's accurate. Like I thought I was going to not like a certain class for a bit. And now I'm doing I have Arkham Horror complete on Tabletop Simulator as well, and I'm running a double Guardian run of Carcosa right now and there. And I didn't think I was going to like Guardians, but both Guardians I'm playing right now I'm in love with, and they're great. And then the Carcosa run I'm running right now with my best friend. We're both running Rogues, and I love Safina. I think Safina is my favorite investigator right now because of her deck building and the way that she just functions. And then with the Fellowship group, I'm starting another Carcosa run and playing a class I've never even played before yet. And
really?
yeah, and
which class is that?
Survivor.
Oh, okay.
I usually end up playing Seeker because I like Seekers a lot, but I'm playing Patrice in the Survivor class, and she's a very weird deck, and people hate her, it seems like, but I want to try her out. And I'm running a Seeker alongside her with something I'm more comfortable with. So just how much stuff you can do with like the almost 50 investigators that are out right now. It will be over 50 when Edge of the Earth releases.
I didn't even know that there were that many.
Yeah. Dude, it's crazy.
There's a lot.
I'm like, I don't even remember the lady I played. I thought she was like a sorcerer or something like that. Or a sorceress.
Purple. It's not.
Yeah, purple's usually the magic. Agatha? No, Jacqueline?
I think it's Jacqueline Christie. I think that's the name.
The one
okay.
from whatever the
yes,
I don't know if it's the base set.
Core set.
Okay.
From the core set, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe that's the one that you played.
Okay.
Yeah. There's just so much out. There's so much out. And that's what I kind of really like about getting into a game that's been out for such a long time and they're still coming out with content for it. Yeah. That's really awesome. I mean, if you think about people getting into Magic now who are just discovering Magic, like it's the same kind of feeling.
Yeah.
But I like that feeling is also there, but for another game, but for other games that aren't Magic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, it used to be like if you wanted to have that experience, it was like, well, go play Magic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there wasn't much else. Mm-hmm. But now, even from like 5 years ago, I feel like the landscape has shifted just dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
So like for being a card game player, like that's awesome.
That's for sure.
Like it really is. So we're talking mostly about living card games, but also kind of expandable card games. Have you played Ashes Reborn or even just Ashes?
I have not. That's something I've been wanting to try out. A friend of mine from our game group bought it, and I told him I'm interested in trying it.
Okay.
I don't know if I mentioned this before. Maybe it was when you and I were chatting on Instagram or through email that I mentioned that for me, any game, if I see a board game come out that says multi-use cards is one of its things, I'm immediately wanting to look at it more than any other game. Yeah. And for me, like, I know this is blasphemous to some board game people. I don't really give a shit about theme. like the only thing I care about theme, if it's space theme, I don't want it. Like,
really?
Yeah. Otherwise, like theme doesn't matter to me. I'm such a mechanics person. Like I just want to know how the game works and how things interlock. Mm-hmm. That's more important to me. And if the theme happens to reinforce the mechanic, then great. But but there's like so many games that where people just like buy into it because the theme is cool and then they play the game and the game just sucks. Yeah. Or it's just like very not what you were expecting.
Yeah.
So, and at least like with like Ryan always sees games that look nice and he buys those. I get the brown games that are boring. Like give me the beige Euro and I'm into it. And then like, and I'll say like the game looks like shit, but it plays amazing.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking to Jerome Demar. He's the designer of Fuji Koro. And he made a good point about designing games, which I like now use when I'm researching games in general, where if your game doesn't work as an Excel sheet, it doesn't matter. Because you can put all the art into a game as you want. But if it doesn't even function, then what's the point?
Yeah. That's a good point.
I always and my wife can attest that I was like farming games like crazy because I just would buy games that was like, this looks cool. I just want to buy it. And I'm so much more now. Like I need to watch videos. I need to see mechanics. I don't kickstart anymore. Like I just want to see a gameplay of the game and see how the mechanics work and then base my decision off of that.
I feel like being a card game player, that makes sense. Like coming from someone who I know is a strategic card game player, that makes sense because like the way strategy card game players just minds even think. It's all about their logical thinking, their problem solving, right? And that just lends itself more to these strategy card games. And like if you're more heavily invested, or not even heavily invested, but you really enjoy that mechanic or that genre more, you're going to be coming at a game from a completely different aspect than other people are. That makes total sense. So you are way more mechanics over theme. Period. End of story.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
If the theme helps reinforce things, I think the only game really that I saw the theme and I was like, I want it because of theme was Root. And I saw Jamie Stegmaier posted on Instagram and I was like, what is this tiny wooden cat? I want to know what this is.
Yeah.
And then the game ended up being amazing too. But like every other game has always been like, I want to know how it works before anything else.
Well, it's interesting. So now I'm kind of like gonna apply that then to Disney Villainous, right?
Yeah.
So we're all big card game players, right?
Yeah.
And so the first time I played Disney Villainous, I went to Walmart with a cousin, and I saw it on the shelf, and I'm just like, honestly, like you see Disney all over the place, and like it never like we're a big Disney family, but I'm still not like anytime I see Disney, I'm like, oh, I'm immediately gonna get it.
There's a lot of Disney stuff out there,
right? Yeah. And so normally for me, if I see it, I'm normally gonna be like, okay, no, it's just somebody paying for the paying for the name on it, the license, so they can try and get some sales. So I pulled it off the shelf. I started looking at it. I turned the box over, and then I see cards. Okay, now tell me more. So I looked at it a little bit more, and then I'm like, okay, this actually looks interesting. Yeah. So we picked it up, brought it home. I played it, and I'm like, okay, I'm sold. I loved it. But, however, what I will say is for me, the theme actually is what sold me and that game in particular. And like Keegan, I'm kind of like you. Like I'm usually not super into the theming aspect more. I'm more so into is it fun and does the game function very well? And like is it heavy enough strategically that I can really get into it? But this game, Disney Villainous, I found I loved the theme more than anything. However, the strategy and the mechanics really supplemented and really just reinforced that theme really, really, really well.
Yeah.
So have you played Villainous at all?
No, that's one I've been wanting to like pick up and try because my wife and I are both big Disney people, and me liking horror, I always side with the villains. I like villains in shows. I don't necessarily side with them. I don't want Scar to kill Mufasa, but like, but it just like the villains were always more interesting to me than anything else.
Scar didn't kill Mufasa. The ground did. And the stampede.
I mean, if we're going semantics, totally agree with that.
He just got the assist.
I mean, it did get me excited when I saw Villainous put the Horn King as one of the expansions. People are doing a Black Cauldron. What?
Yeah, that and he was fun. That was a really fun villain.
Yeah, when you were playing that, I was like, I don't know what this is because I don't even know what it's from. Honestly, you were saying the Black Cauldron.
The Black Cauldron.
I've never seen it, but like watching and the artwork on it as well, and what you were doing in the game, I'm like, that seems like something I also want to do. Yeah. So one day we'll get there
for sure. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I totally recommend getting it. I mean, we do a lot of those videos, but also Marvel Villainous, like from a strategic card game player standpoint, Marvel Villainous over Disney Villainous. Yeah, like
really?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Because with Marvel Villainous, there's a lot more interaction, player on player. The biggest, and that's where the biggest difference is between Disney and Marvel. With Marvel, there's a lot more player interaction. Disney, you're mostly just basically engine building, and if another player wants to interact with you, they'll just say, okay, let's see what your top two cards of your fate deck are, and let's just see how that slows you down. Yeah. So there really isn't. It's indirect player interaction. There is no direct player interaction.
It also seems like the cards inside the fate deck for Marvel are a lot more harsh overall than what some of the cards are. Because there are some for Disney where it's like, oh, these do nothing. You know, and it's just like you wasted an entire action or turn, depending on what it is. So
yeah. And then the one thing that I would say to a lot of people who say that is it's a card game.
Yeah,
you know?
It's a card game.
You know, we're card game players. We get it. You know, it's that's how it be sometime, unfortunately. So, yeah.
I need to look into it because I was thinking about like the theme stuff, and I think most of my games are very void of theme. Like it's like themes kind of just like painted on, but everything underneath is more just like the mechanic.
I feel like as a designer, like that's where it's like, what are you going to prioritize, theme or mechanic?
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like I'm sure there's a lot of games who it's like they pick one or the other to really focus on. And as a designer, it's like you have to figure out how can you do both really, really well.
Totally.
Right. And I get that's probably expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably really expensive.
It's just I was looking at my top 10 list today because I was talking to a coworker about games, and I looked at my list and I was like, yeah, pretty much like my top 10, 7 of the games are just there's a theme, but not really.
Yeah.
And the other 3 like very thematic, but everything else I'm like, I just want good gameplay. That's all I want.
Yeah. And I feel like from a video game perspective, that's usually how I would approach the video game. Is it fun to play?
I was gonna say there's so many great games out there, but the quality of like the graphics compared to what there are now is just like terrible.
Yeah.
But it's like the gameplay is so good, or the community inside the game is just still going if it's an online game, Yeah. And it's just like, I mean, you talk about a lot of the old school shooters, people are still playing.
GoldenEye.
Yeah. I mean, I keep going back to Super Nintendo. That's like my favorite system of all time. And most of my favorite video games are Super Nintendo games too.
Yeah. That's for a reason, because those are awesome. I was a Genesis kid, so I had a Genesis. I didn't have a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
So for me, like I gravitate toward the Genesis, mostly based for nostalgia. Yeah. But still, those games are still really great. Sonic,
totally.
All the Sonics, for sure. So what other card games? Are there any other card games that you're kind of really playing or that you really like to play outside of Arkham?
Yeah. Let me pull up my BGG profile and look at my games. I know one that immediately came to top of mind was Glory to Rome.
Okay.
Don't buy a copy off the third market. Don't do it because they're selling for $300. Don't buy one.
Ooh, okay.
I made a homebrew version. So, but Glory to the Rome is great. It's all multi-use cards. It's just a card game. And the theme is you're building Rome. You're just playing cards. Come on. But the whole game is like, it's designed super elegantly where every card is overpowered. Every single card is overpowered. And the whole point of the game is you have a card, you play a card from your hand. There's 5 different colors, and each color or 6 different colors, and each color represents a different type of action you can take when you play it. And after you play a card, everyone is allowed to also play a matching colored card after you play, and you all get to take those actions in a turn. So there's never downtime. You're always playing something. And your cards, depending on where you put them on your board, the card either becomes an additional action. So if you play, like, there's cards called Clientele, which lets you hire more cards into your Clientele to get more bonus actions. So if you play a Clientele card and you have also a Clientele card in your Clientele spot, you get to hire 2 people instead of 1. Every card is also a building. So if you play the card as a building to build, once you complete it and gets in your city, then you have a bonus power for the rest of the game. There are some cards that legit just say, if you build this card, you win and the game is over. And there's cards that let you steal cards from other players. And the other cool part too is the game has no discard pile. Any card that gets discarded goes to a pool in the middle of the table that other people can take your cards from then.
Wow, interesting.
So everything links together and everything. The game is brutally mean. It can get really nasty. Yeah, it's really good. Make a homebrew version. Don't buy the $300 nice version.
Glory to Rome, right?
Glory to Rome.
Glory to Rome. Okay.
There's a version that looks like it's like really bad cartoon, like really, really bad, like comic book cartoons. It looks ugly as sin. It's about $100, but don't get it. It looks so bad. But that game's amazing. I love that game. This is kind of like a hybrid card game. I mean, the whole game functions on the cards you play. Fuji Magnet. It's by this company called Splotter. They're a Dutch team. It's just 2 guys. They do this for fun. They have day jobs. So all the art for the Splotter games look like children drew it. but the gameplay is so deep. Fuji Magnet is my number 5 favorite game of all time.
Okay.
And the whole game is you're the CEO of a fast food restaurant, and there's a giant map. Everyone's the CEO of their own fast food restaurant, and you play cards to hire more cards to get people to make burgers for you, to get people to do marketing for you. And the whole board is you trying to mess everyone else up. And you're like marketing to houses like, this house wants pizza, this house wants beer. And then after everyone does their rounds of playing their cards, then all the houses on the board go out to get food from fast food restaurants, which is your restaurant. Yeah. But they only will buy food from you if you can fulfill their entire order. So you can like see someone like that person's bogarting all the pizza in the game and all their houses want pizza. I'm just going to put a mailbox campaign in their yard that makes them want beer now. And they have no way to get beer. So they can't sell anything for the next 5 rounds until they find beer somehow.
Wow.
And the game lasts 3 to 5 hours.
All right. You lost Jim.
But it doesn't feel like it lasts that long. It goes by really fast, and I suck at it. I'm so bad at this game. My wife destroys us when she plays. Like but the game's amazing.
Interesting. It sounds a little bit like Unfair. A little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, it sounds like that. Yeah.
Let's see. Bruges is really good. It's another Stefan Feld game with multi-use cards. It just got reprinted on Kickstarter as Hamburg, where they changed the rules a little bit. Multi-use cards, you're building, every card functions either as a person that you can put in your city or as a house you can put more people in. And when the people are in your city, you get bonus abilities and special actions to do more stuff on your turn. I'm going really quick through these things. Dale of Merchants is a really good quick deck builder game where you are hiring animals to help you make the best merchant stall in the city. First person to make all their stalls is the winner. It goes by really fast, and there's a lot of variability because if you have all of it, there's about 30 different animals, and you only mix a certain amount depending on player count. Okay. The last quick one I'll do, because I could do this forever, is the one I've really liked a lot, and I picked up because I saw someone on Instagram post about it. It's called Fantasy Realms.
Yes. Okay.
Fantasy Realms.
Just got that not that long ago.
Have you played it yet?
Not yet. Not yet.
Oh, it's so good.
Did I see this one?
Yeah, it's right behind you.
Is it right behind?
It's right behind you.
It's
on top of
that one. Okay.
Yeah.
It might be my new backpack game.
Yeah.
It takes like 15 minutes to play max, and it just goes so fast, and all you're doing is card drafting and trying to score the best possible hand, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's very, very good.
Yeah, we're going to have to play that one then.
We're going to take a quick second. I hear? You hear that?
Yeah. Is that fireworks?
No, I want to make sure it's not my kids.
Is it popcorn?
Oh.
Make sure it's not my kids.
I think it's popcorn. Oh. All right. Understood.
Yeah, no problem.
Understood. He can't hear you. No, not you, Dan. He said something to you, and I'm like, you can't hear me. He answered. Okay. This is fine.
It happens.
Yeah.
What have you guys been playing lately?
Villainous. A whole lot of Villainous. We played DC Deck Builder as well. And what else have we really played? We have one video on Lord of the Rings.
Cool.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, we've only recorded like 3 different games, right? Villainous, DC, and Lord of the Rings.
No, Here to Slay. We just did
Oh, yeah, and we just did Here to Slay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But, yes, hopefully soon we can play that Fantasy Star.
What?
Fantasy Star, we can play that one soon. Fantasy Realms, my bad.
Fantasy Realms, yeah.
I was thinking like Star Realms, Fantasy Star.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wait, Fantasy Star Online is a completely different game.
Yeah, that is totally different.
Yeah.
All right. Where were we?
I just thought of one more game to bring up because I can't remember if you guys mentioned. Were you both TCG players growing up?
He was.
Huge.
I got into him later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that long ago, actually. Probably 5 years ish.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, 5
You're
years.
saying like
or so.
Dominaria for MTG, right? Yeah.
Well, Jim, this might be more for you then. Have you heard of a game called Millennium Blades?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Dan, do you know about this one?
I do not.
Dan, this game.
Wait.
Let him.
I feel like you were telling me about this. It sounds this. Okay, you were telling me about this.
I was.
Yeah.
A giant CCG simulator game.
That's what it was.
Yeah. It's such a wild idea for a game, but I have it. I haven't got a chance to play it yet, but everyone says it's like, if it's not in their favorite games ever, it's one of their favorite like experiences playing a game ever, because it just simulates like,
I gotta get it now.
It just simulates like being a collector, buying booster packs, getting a collection, making a binder, making a deck to go to tournaments, playing in a tournament, and then selling cards from your binder. It's like it does everything you do as a normal card game player.
I'm like, this just sounds like my everyday life, Dan. If you guys want to know what it's like to be me,
buy Millennium Blades.
hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about it. I'm like, this sounds hilarious and awesome all at the same time.
There's a lot of like really good Easter eggs in it too. There's like a booster pack set that's basically the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. One of the characters you play as is Fat Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh. It's just everything's in there. It's like super funny.
That is awesome.
All right.
Now you have this, right?
I have. So I was at a game store recently, and I saw that they had like a little expansion. It was just like a smaller deck of cards, and I'm like, so I know I want to get this game at some point, so I'm buying whatever this is. I didn't even know what it was, but it was Millennium Blades, like little deck of cards, and it was my first purchase for it.
Okay. There's a shop in
the big box.
There's a shop in the city that I know for sure has it.
Okay.
And it's been on their shelf for like a year because no one knows what it is because it's a comic shop.
Okay.
So,
okay.
All right.
So it's here.
You're gonna have to send me this info later.
Yes, send us the link and then we'll go pick it up.
Okay.
What's today? I'll go tomorrow. What time do they open?
That's awesome. Oh my word. So you touched on it a little bit. Deck builders. Yep. What's your thoughts on deck builders?
Love them. My wife, one of her favorite games is Clank.
Okay.
And that is like a good hybrid, like deck builder / like you're moving around on a map, to like collect like treasures and stuff. And it was one of my favorite experiences we had in gaming because we were visiting friends back in Kansas, and one of our friends was also visiting family at that point. So we met up with him, and he took us to his like new local game store that he was liking there. And he's like, let's play Clank. And he showed us Clank. We had a really good time with it. We finished the game. We left, went back to the car. We were in the car ready to drive away. And my wife kept going, I really liked that game a lot. It was a lot of fun. I was like, they had a copy. You want to go back in and get it? She's like, no, we don't need to get it. It's fine. And then we started driving. She was like, I want it. And she turns like around in the parking lot, parks, and goes inside and goes, I want to buy Clank, please. And the guy goes, well, I'll give you Clank and this expansion and these promos for less than MSRP for just the base game. Oh, and so we just got a huge Clank influx at once.
Wow.
So was that the base, the original, the first?
Yeah, the base and Sunken Treasures expansion.
Okay.
Yep. It's such a good deck builder game. I love it. And then
I haven't played it yet. I mean, I'm going to get all of them at some point, but it's just not one that I've played yet.
It's solid. The one that was more of like we had an argument about this, me and Ryan and Max, that was like, this isn't really a deck builder, but it is, but it's not. Lost Ruins of Arnac.
Right there.
That game is amazing.
I haven't played it yet, but I've been wanting to get it for the longest time, and I saw it on the shelf, and I'm like, all right. I mean, I have to. I have to. It's
insanely good. It's better than it should be, especially for their first time designers too, which is insane.
Oh, they are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's not. It has deck building mechanics, right?
Yep.
It's not like strictly considered a deck builder. It just has deck building mechanics.
Right.
Okay.
It's like the cards that you draw, like you don't need to play cards for every action because you have workers you can put on the board.
Yeah.
But in order to send your workers to specific locations, you'll have to discard cards because there's different movement locations. There's like airplane, boat, and car. Mm-hmm. And if you want to go to a car location, you have to discard a card with a car on it.
Yeah.
Or an airplane because the airplane takes you everywhere. But it's cool, especially the way that you get your cards, because like every other deck builder game, if you buy a card from the market, it goes to your discard pile, and then you have to get through your entire deck, shuffle it, and then hope to draw that card.
Right.
But Arnac, the cards you buy, you will see next turn, because they go into a separate discard pile, and then you flip that discard pile over and put it on just underneath the last few cards under your deck, or the new cards you bought go under your deck, and then you shuffle your discard pile and put that underneath that.
Oh, okay.
So it's always at the top of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's never a time, every card you buy in the game, you'll get to use at least once, which is nice.
Yeah. That's always a feels bad in like the later turns of like Legendary or DC Deck Builder, where you get like the good cards that you can find. You finally have the resources to spend on it, and then you get them, and then you just never see them for a couple turns because the game is then over. Yeah. Like it makes sense. It's just.
The same thing happens in Arkham too. Like you get done with a scenario, you buy a card with your XP, and you're like, I haven't seen this damn card for 3 scenarios, and that my whole deck is around this card, and this sucks.
Now here, I have a question. So, are there tutor effects in Arkham?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It's just like class dependent though too, depending on like Guardians have cards that let you get your weapons out quicker. Like you search the top 9 cards of your deck for a weapon to get, but then you can't play that card in a Seeker class unless that Seeker lets you play a Guardian cards. Like there's a lot of like, I mean, that's the other thing with the Investigators too. The deck building requirements for every Investigator is unique depending on what deluxe box they came in.
Oh yeah.
So like, so like Edge of the Earth, the new set coming out, the way they made these Investigators work, which is really cool, is that like your blue Investigator, the Guardian, they all function the same, where you can have level 0 to level 2 cards of your class specific card in your deck to start with and for the rest of the game, but your character transitions to a new class throughout the game. So the Guardian transitions into a Survivor, because then you can have, you can have the full range of Survivor cards in your deck, but you can only have 0 to 2 Guardian cards for your Guardian deck. So it's cool that everything kind of shifts while you're playing the game. So the whole set is about shifting, and there's a whole other set that's like your deck requirement is you can have any card from your class in there, but also you can have any card that has Spirit in the name, or you can have any card that heals horror off of you. You can put that in your deck. So there's so much like little minutia with the deck building that makes the game even deeper.
See, that's what I love about these living card games and the expandable card games is the deck building requirements. Yeah. Like it's not like any other TCG or CCG where it's like you can build whatever you want. Where like that's cool, like that's nice.
Well, you kind of can, but it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest.
Yeah, right. But legal, like it's legal.
Yes.
Like it's legal. But for games like these, like Arkham, it's like you can't just build whatever you want and then it's legal. Yeah. Like you actually have these requirements that, okay, if you want to build this kind of deck, you have to follow these rules, basically. Like, I mean, I guess there are minor rules in, TCGs and CCGs like Magic, but they're not big rules that you got to follow.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why it's like, it's almost like a puzzle where you're trying to figure out to build the best kind of deck using these given requirements.
Yeah. Can you imagine if it was like that for Magic of like, you can only have 4 1-drops, 8 2-drops, and so on and so forth. And you're getting to these higher and higher mana curves.
So I used to play Elder Scrolls Legends. Mm-hmm. So the Elder Scrolls TCG, right? Mm-hmm. Digital card game. And like one of the big things that a lot of people did, or even there were tournaments that it's like they had their requirements. Like it's for this tournament, this is singleton only format, right? But there were other different formats that they just made up and said, here are the rules for these decks because we want to see deck variety, right? Because a lot of times if you don't have these rules set up, the meta just turns into whatever like standard or whatever is at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So. And that's what I've learned and loved about the card games is like I have a renewed appreciation for diversity of decks.
Yeah. And even just like you hear something that has like crazy deck building requirements, like this investigator, Carolyn Fern, who's a guardian, and her weird deck requirement is since she's the psychologist, she doesn't play like a normal guardian with gets big guns and grenades, which you can put in her deck if you want to. But her whole thing is that she wants to talk to you because she's a psychologist. So her deck building requirement is any card that heals horror, you can also include in her deck. And so you play the whole class differently because it's not like a typical class.
Typical
but even then,
right?
You hear that and you're like, well, there's definitely best cards to put in the deck then, right? But you look online and there's like 15, 20 different Carolyn decks that all function really well.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
But then it's also cool if you see those 20 and then you come up with the 21st that works just as good, if not better.
Yeah. Or even coming with like I can gush about Arkham for fucking ever, but like making thematic decks too is so cool. Like my friend and I want to make a Scooby-Doo run where we play everyone from Scooby-Doo, which is 5 people, but there's a character called Ashcan Pete and his card is a dog. So that's Scooby and Shaggy right there.
Yep. That's
and
why
then
I played the last time when we played.
Was it?
I played Ashcan Pete, yes.
It's just like cool, the dumb things you can do. And there's William York, who's a gravedigger, Pet Cemetery. You just include your deck with a bunch of animal companions. You dig them up and play them again. It's
so and that from deck building, I love doing that too because like I have a commander deck for Magic that I built. It's Kenrith. What is the even name? It's
Kenrith the
Return King, right? So like it's a humans deck essentially, and like so he's the king. There's Queen Marchesa who's in there. I'm like, that's his queen. There's a prince. I can't remember the name.
For everyone who knows, that is not the queen.
That's not the queen. That's not his queen. But in the deck, she's the queen. There's like a prince in there. I'm like, that's their heir, Gerard. I think it's from Commander Legends, right? And I'm like, he's the prince, and I've got a bunch of other humans that are like, I gave them like their own individual like roles within the kingdom, and I'm like, hey, these are all humans. Okay, this is awesome. I'm like, all right, I got it. There we go. It's on theme, and like that's one of the things that I really enjoy. It's the mechanics are there because it's a strategy card game. Now I'm bringing my own theming into it.
Yep.
Like that's what's cool. I love that.
That's like one of our favorite ones we're looking forward to doing is we're making a griefer run where we're making decks because there's like especially the rogue class because the rogue class just does chaos. That's their whole point is you can put cards in your deck for rogues that give the cards like, oh, I don't want to do this, you do it. And so the whole deck, we're just going to make double griefer decks where we have to still try to beat the game, but try to ruin each other's game plan at the same time.
That sounds like a gym deck.
I ain't gonna lie, yeah, it does. It does.
Like the other one that we were really excited about is, and I'll stop on Arkham then, but like there's a new investigator called Bob Jenkins coming out in Edge of the Earth, and he's a door-to-door salesman. And so we want to do a deck with him. We want to do a thing where we play 2-player, but with 3 investigators. And the third investigator, we will take control over every other round. But it's going to be Bob Jenkins, the booze and drug peddling salesman. So his whole deck is going to be different pills and drugs and alcohol. And then he's going to play a rogue class that has illicit weapons in it. And then the other person is a person that's getting constantly accosted by these people on the street trying to sell him alcohol and booze and things. So then you can, like, when you take control of that third investigator, that's when your investigator can be like, hey, come over here. I have a sweet AR-15 I can sell you right now this round if you want it. The whole game is going to be how stocked up can we give this person? How deep can we get them into addiction in the scenario?
Oh, man.
Oh, dude, that's funny. Oh, man. So you really like Arkham Horror?
Oh, yeah, I love it.
So, okay. So we touched on this a little bit, but deck building games.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of your favorites? Do you have some favorite deck builders?
Clank is really high on the list for both of us.
Okay.
Just because it's so easy to take out and just get to it. It's just super accessible. I've only played Dominion once, but I really like Dominion. Mm-hmm. I don't want to try to invest into it. If I can find someone getting rid of a collection cheap, then but there's just so many expansions for that one too.
Yeah.
I'm looking through my collection again really fast. Oh, this one's kind of interesting because you deck build as the game starts. It's called Lawyer Up. It was a Kickstarter not too long ago. It's a 2-player only card game, and you play as the prosecutor and the defense attorney in a court case, and you're trying to sway jurors to your side of the argument by playing cards. And depending on this, there's different scenarios to play. There's even a Salem witch hunt one, which is cool.
Dan, we need it.
It's cool. But the whole thing then is there's this, depending on the scenario you play and the difficulty of the scenario that you play, there's a different deck you will take out. And that's the evidence deck. So the prosecutor and the defense attorney both start with the same, like, I forget what the types of cards. There's 3 types of cards, and there's 2 types in each of those decks. And then the evidence deck gets its own deck for the scenario. And then what you do then is each player then at the very beginning of the game, you draw 3 cards off the evidence deck, pick 1 to put in your deck, pick evidence to give to your opponent, and 1 piece of evidence that you're burying. So no one can use that evidence in the court case. And you draft your whole deck and your opponent's deck through that entire stack before the game even starts.
Wow.
You're not even deck building yourself. You're also deck building your opponent's deck.
Huh.
That's a completely different take on it.
Yeah. Another thing too then is you're not allowed to look at any of the cards that you draft for yourself or any of the cards your opponent gives you. You can't, once they're face down, you can't look at them. You shuffle your deck and you just see what you get when you draw it.
Oh, interesting. That's a very interesting take.
Yeah,
it's super cool.
We need it.
All right.
Lawyer up.
Lawyer up.
Yeah. I think I've heard of it. I'm pretty sure I've heard of it before.
It didn't come out too long ago. I think like 4 or 5 months ago, but it's very, very fun.
Yeah. Cool. Have you played, I assume not, any of the DC deck builder or Marvel Legendary?
I have not.
Okay.
I need to just try it just to play it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very different.
Yeah.
But they're also they're similar, but they're still very different. The first deck builder that I played was DC deck builder, and wasn't that the same for you? Yeah, yeah. And if you haven't, like we've got a couple of DC deck building game videos out.
Oh, great!
And actually, we're releasing another one on Friday. It's going to be our next one.
Cool.
So I think at this point, I've got like all of them, all of the different expansions. One of the cool things that I like about DC deck builder, so originally, like when they came out, like it's a competitive deck builder, right? And so like there's actually a competitive community of people who play game pretty competitively, and it's, and you can play it really competitively, and it's built that way.
There's a ban list and everything.
Oh yeah, they've got a ban list.
For
They've got everything, and so they've also got like these crisis expansions, which it turns it from a competitive into a co-op game. And then they first came out with rivals. So it was Batman and Joker. So one of you plays as the hero, one of you plays as the villain. And it is legit head to head. And then they came out with a big box expansion called Confrontations with like a bunch of the other heroes and villains. So, and then they came out with another rivals box, which was Green Lantern and Sinestro. And then they're coming out this year, I believe the end of this year, with Flash and Reverse Flash. So it's nice that they have these different ways to play it, right? Yeah. So you've got competitive, but then you have like strict like head-to-head and even teams. And there's a newer version like called Rebirth. And I can't remember, like they actually have like pieces and locations that you can move around.
Cool.
I haven't played that one yet. But it's a little bit of a different take.
Yeah.
But from a card gamer and a deck building standpoint, it works really, really well.
Okay.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun.
Just say I don't think I've ever heard of the Rebirth one. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't gotten it yet, but eventually it'll get added to the collection.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is different. I am interested to see how it plays with like moving around in these different locations. I'm interested just to see how it works. So, but yeah, I would recommend checking that one out. Even the base, the core set is still pretty good. And so one of the things that's really weird, well, not weird, it's just with the DC version. So you pick a superhero that you start as, and they each have their different ability. So like when you're building your deck, they don't force you into building it a certain way. It's just you get bigger bonuses or buffs if you build it a certain way. Like Batman is more focused on equipment. Superman is more focused on superpowers. So like if you build it that way, if you don't, it's like you're missing out on, benefits and resources essentially. Sure. So with Legendary, like you can literally do it however you want because you're not controlling anything. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm torn, I guess, on the idea, the concept of it. Like I like it, but I also feel like every time I play it, like I'm already kind of pigeonholed in a way that I have to build it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you still don't have to build it that way.
Yeah.
So like it's got its pros and its cons.
There are also characters that are just like, well, this is a very generic thing.
Yeah.
So like the Flash, it's whenever you draw a card in, you want to draw cards, right?
Yeah,
you
it's
want
a
to play
card game. You wanna
cards
draw
to draw
cards.
more cards. He allows you to draw an additional card as well.
The first time each turn. Yeah. He's banned in the.
I can see why drawing cards is like the most powerful thing you can do in a card game.
And Green Lantern as well. It just says when you play cards that have cost 1 or more, so anything that's not in like the starter deck. Yeah. And if it's 3 or more cards with different names, then you get to add 3 power to your overall score.
Yeah, which is your resource for the game. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So it's just you're going to get that like after turn like 5 or 6 after you start buying cards. It's you're getting it like every turn, which you did.
Yeah. In the late stage, it was just like, activated him. Next turn, activated again. And like there were some times where it was like, oh no, I only have 2. And then I had a card that was just like, draw. Oh, there it is, +3. So sometimes it can get scary, but
for me, which
there is a character in the game which is probably the most fun I've ever had. Shazam in DC Deck Builder. You can pay 3 power to just take the card off the top of the deck. You don't know what it is until you just get it.
Yeah. So it could be a card that costs like 10 and you just paid 3 for it. You're like,
oh my gosh.
And your opponent doesn't even have an opportunity to even like get the card because you know you play with all the ones that are face up on the board and that's normally what you can buy. And the best part is it's not once per turn. You could just be like, I have 12 power, 4 off the top. Yep. Okay, these are my new cards.
Yeah,
that's wild.
That's busted.
It's a lot of fun.
That's busted. But you know what? Like, how many times, Keegan, have you been playing a card game and you've said those 2 words? That's busted.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Every day I played that game. I still like watch random Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos online. Like I'm not even playing the game anymore just to see like how insane it's gotten. Yeah. And there's been so many like Yu-Gi streamers or Yu-Gi tubers that say like if you don't make an unbreakable board turn 1, you lose. And it's that's the case now. I had
that for a long time.
It's nuts. Mm-hmm. Like I thought I had a pretty good combo deck going on when I was still playing the game. And then looking at combo decks now, like draw 20 cards your first turn and put 7 monsters on board, and that's normal. It's like, okay, cool. I don't want to play this anymore.
That's not fun to me.
Yeah. No.
Okay, is it cool? Show it to me one time. Okay, yeah, that's cool. But I don't want to do that every time.
Yeah. It's the one thing in card games you don't want because Hearthstone had this huge problem too. Like I was getting really I played Hearthstone a lot. Then I got really out of it this year. And then after all the Blizzard stuff happened, I'm like, I'm not going back anymore at all. But that game, there were so many situations of this is fun for me, but if this happened to me, I would hate it. Mm-hmm. And that can kill a card game.
Mm-hmm. I started playing Hearthstone just solo, just going through the campaigns.
Like, those are fun.
Yeah, those are fun. But I'm not playing this online. I'm not playing with anybody. No. I can do the campaign because that's fun, but nothing else.
No, there's so much like it just feels bad.
Yep.
And like there was a card that came out in the game that started that downhill trend called Patches the Pirate.
Ooh, Patches. I'm in charge.
And that card felt bad for every player where if someone played a pirate turn 1 and they drew Patches out of their deck, it felt really bad for you as the opponent. But if you're playing a Patches deck and you draw Patches, you feel horrible.
The crazy thing about it was like there was a statistic they found out. If you didn't draw or if you did draw Patches in your first card when playing the deck, your win to loss ratio dropped to like 40%.
If you drew it?
Yeah. So if you draw into it, normally the deck was sitting at like 82%. Yeah. But if you draw into it, you shot down.
Really?
You lost like 50% of your games at that point.
The whole card's ability was that it had charge, so it could attack immediately when it hit the board. But its ability was if it's in your deck and you play a pirate, it summons from your deck automatically.
Yeah, it's free.
So if it's in your hand and you have to pay to play it, it's so worthless.
Yeah.
Wow.
And later on, so the thing I said with I'm in charge is what he used to say because he had the ability charge. They got rid of the charge ability, and he no longer says that. So that's like a really old school thing.
I haven't played Hearthstone in a long time.
My favorite card from that one, well, one I did play a lot was Kingslayer for Rogue. Mm-hmm. It was a weapon that you would set up. It had 2 durability, so you'd attack with it the first turn you played.
Kingsbane,
yeah, Kingsbane, yeah, my bad. And then it all the enchantments that you pretty much had on it. So like raise up its attack, give it life still, whatever it is. As soon as it's destroyed, you put it back into your deck,
and it keeps all the enhancements.
So you don't fatigue.
Yeah.
So you're not losing life from being like, oh man, I decked out. No, you didn't. Just attack into your next turn and then draw the card.
Oh my
in the following turn. And then it could get to like 14 to 18 attack along with life steal. So every single turn you're just like poke, full heal.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy.
I love that deck.
But see, you love it, but if you played against it, oh my god, I hate this. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. All right, so I think we both know what the answer to this is going to be. That's okay. So if you could play one game, we asked this to everybody. All right. Mm-hmm. So if you could play one game for the rest of your life, you could only pick one. What would it be?
Scrabble. No.
Words are hard, Dan. Words are hard.
Arkham Horror, the card game. Any day. It would have been Root. For the longest time, it would have been Root. But Arkham trumped that position for me. Just because of how replayable it is.
That's got to be my biggest thing when it comes to card games in general. It's just the replayability. Yeah. I've said this about deck builders, but really it can apply to any card game. Yeah. Is the first time we played DC Deck Builder completely different from the last time we played it.
Oh yeah,
totally not the same. I think I said this last time, but I had our foreign exchange student over our house a couple weeks ago. I introduced him to DC Deck Builder. I'm like, have you ever played you see all these games. I'm like, have you ever played a card game? You ever played a deck builder? He's like, nope. So I busted out DC Deck Builder, played 3 different games. That each of them was completely different. Completely different. And he loved it, of course. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't he? Because it's awesome. But it's a different experience every single time. And I could even be playing the same hero, and it's still completely different. But that applies to literally any card game that we're playing. It's totally different every single time, and that's awesome to me. You can give me a deck of 100 cards, and like you're playing through, like I even said earlier with that first scenario in Arkham.
Yep.
It's a different experience every single time.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And I don't think there's any other game that can provide that sense of differentiation, I guess, or replayability.
I think that's just the innate RNG aspect of card games with you don't your deck, but you don't know what you're going to draw. Yeah. I think the only games that I feel like can really compete with that are games where the player interaction is very, very, very high because you can't, like Ryan is, for example, is super into games where you can like long-term plan a strat from the beginning and just follow that plan the entire way through.
Yeah.
He likes to long game and I hate long game. I'm very much more of a tactical player. I like when things change in the moment and just having to respond to it.
Yeah.
Which games, like card games, you have to respond to how you draw. You have to respond to what you have available to you. Yep. Or games where like player board interaction, like Root, for example, the player board changes from one turn to the next, and you might have a whole plan for your turn, and one thing can happen, your whole plan is ruined, and you have to think of something else.
The mice do their revolution and just completely destroy some stuff.
Yep.
Or you're playing a scoundrel. I think it's
the vagabond.
Yeah, the vagabond. Yeah.
Yep.
You can be a scoundrel as a vagabond. Yeah. And the different things that you can do as a vagabond is great because you're just one little character moving around the entire map rather than controlling armies every single where else.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your favorite? Have you played all of the boxes of Arkham yet?
No, I have not.
Okay. What's your favorite? What's your favorite deluxe expansion that you've played so far?
Definitely Carcosa.
Carcosa.
It adds a lot to the game. Like Dunwich helped a lot with like Corset, the Knight of the Zealot shows you it's a really good tutorial of what the game can do. Mm-hmm. But Dunwich like kicks those doors down and punches the windows out and goes, look at this house. And then like Carcosa just adds a lot to the thematic storytelling of it. Yeah. Like there's some results in Carcosa that affect what you're allowed to say physically in real life in the campaign.
Really?
Yeah. And that happened with me and my friend. We're like, oh, we shouldn't say this anymore. And then I accidentally said it the next time we played and I got hurt by it. And it's just like little things like that. It just blows the game up a lot. It's just, and every deluxe box adds a new element to the game that adds like this little twist in. And I know I'm going to like love something about everyone, but right now Carcosa, also the first scenario of Carcosa takes place in a theater, and being a theater kid, that makes me happy. Like it's just a really good experience.
Have you played any of the, what exactly are they called? But it's like you've got Night of the Rougarou, Murder at the Excelsior Hotel.
The side quests.
Yeah. Have you played those ones yet?
I was gonna solo play the hotel over the weekend because I kept hearing how great the hotel scenario was.
I've heard good things about that.
Yeah,
I've heard good things about all of them. I finally found Carnival of Horrors and Curse of the Rougarou.
Yeah.
So finally found them, and I'm like, okay, bye. I'm like, I've been trying to get them for the longest time.
We were debating about wanting to do like a side quest in our Carcosa like run, but we're one scenario from being done with it. So we're like, let's just finish Carcosa off and then move to Innsmouth. But there's a really fun one that I really want to play with my wife called Barkham Horror.
Oh, I have, dude. I pre-ordered that thing and then it got canceled because it was Asmodee. Mm-hmm. Asmodee messed up. Is basically what happened, which is like a regular occurrence nowadays, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I had it pre-ordered and now you can't get it. Like, I don't even know where to get it. So
some guy on our Chicago board game selling group was selling it for $15, so I went and picked it up.
Oh, I gotta see if I can find it.
Yeah,
but that was funny. It started as a joke.
Yeah, even the back of the box says this isn't an April Fool's joke. It actually happened.
Yeah, it was weird.
Like all the investigators are dogs and all the enemies are cats.
Yep.
And you can't combine anything to any other sets. It says this is a standalone, only play it like this, but it looks like so much fun. Especially the best part is Duke is in it. Ashcan Pete's sidekick.
Yes.
And but then Duke's sidekick is Ashcan Pete, which is hilarious.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I wanted to get that one, but I couldn't. So, but anyway.
One day, Dan.
One day we'll find it. Okay, so the last thing I kind of want to. Man, we've been talking for a while. Holy cow! Does not seem like it's been that long.
It doesn't seem like that.
All right, so we've talked a lot about living card games and expandable card games and how that really is way more appealing than the TCG or CCG, I guess, a market, let's just say.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that market has been, just games wise? Like we've touched on it a little bit. There's a lot of really good expandable card games now that are out there.
Yeah.
Like when I found that out, I'm like, dude, this model is just awesome. Why don't more games or more designers really go that route?
I feel like they should. I mean,
same. I agree.
I don't know if like Fantasy Flight has like a patent on the living card game idea.
They have a patent on the name or the name trademark. They trademark the term living card game.
Okay.
But you say that, a side note here, we've touched on this before, Earthborn Rangers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There we go.
Yeah.
We got somebody else who's excited about it.
I mean, like I said, I kicked Kickstarter because
sure.
I got very upset about Kickstarters doing like, this is Kickstarter only, so you have to back it. Yeah. And I hate that business model so much. Like if you have to sell your game because of promos, then your game's probably not that good.
Yeah.
Which is I only back games for leader games now because they say like anything you get from Kickstarter is what you'll get retail, but you just get it early. Like that's fine with me.
Yeah. But, and there's a few places now that do that are like that that have adopted that model, and like that's perfect. But it's funny though, Andrew Navarro, the designer for Earthborn, is like, yeah, no, this is where I am totally not doing that. This is the same thing, but like with him, he's just like, this is what we need to make the game a reality. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that I'm all for you, man.
Totally.
I'm totally there. That's awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Just like any like the stretch goals and the Kickstarter exclusive stuff, just like don't do that shit anymore. Yeah. Just like show us what your game is and everything that's going to come with it, and just leave it at that and let us decide on it like at that point. But I think more places or more companies should do the model of just like expanding things, especially if they have a card game. I mean, there's like a lot of like quick, small, like Res Arcana is another good deck builder that I like that has
I've heard good things about that one too.
It's incredible. Get it. But it has one expansion out already, and they have another expansion coming out end of this year that just adds more cards to it, which is cool. But more games coming up with like story-based systems.
Yes.
And buying things that you just need to get this one little pack and you get so much extra content that just adds to story, I think is such a good idea that more companies should do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hearing Isaac Vega talk about Ashes Reborn, he's the lead designer for that game. Like, it makes sense. Like, somebody who came up and like with not a lot of money, and like they didn't have the money to be like, okay, give me 100 booster packs and then maybe I'll get the card that I want to actually be able to play this game competitively. Yeah. Like, TCGs and CCGs just price people out of the game, the competitive game, real quick.
Well, even with COVID, it priced people out of the casual game too.
Yeah.
Or like Pokemon packs were $10 a pack.
Yeah.
Like the Digimon game came out during COVID, and I was really interested in the Digimon game, and then booster packs were $250.
The starter decks, there was the red one, which is tied. That was like $50, $60 on secondary market. Yep. It's going for like 10 to 15. It's like, okay, this is fine.
And not even secondary market. Even the game retailers here were pricing them that high.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's like still some shops here there's still places here that are pricing Pokemon packs $9 a pack.
Oh, right.
Which is like, you can just go to Target and get lucky and get one for $4, but like all like the small mom and pop shops are charging them like crazy. Yeah. It's just like that will kill a game more than anything is the third market, because there's so many whales or people that just want to buy things to flip it.
Yeah.
Which like that caused Target to have their whole like we're banning purchases for a bit or holding these, because people were legit fighting the vendors that were coming in for packs.
It's like one.
Yeah. It's like because packs. 20 and 30-year-old weirdos that want to make a quick buck on a kid's card game want to ruin it for everyone.
Yeah.
Like on one aspect, I'm like, more power to those people for like trying to, be an entrepreneur. Like, I get that. But at the same time, it's like, come on. Like, grow up too.
It's like be an entrepreneur and do something on your own then, and like don't like buy something that someone legitimately wants just to flip it. Yeah. Like you're just taking it away from somebody else who legitimately wants it because they want to enjoy it, and not someone who just wants the money.
Right.
It's such like I have such like a low tolerance for scalpers. Like it's such like a scumbaggy thing to do. I can't stand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'll be the next expansion in Millennium Blades.
The Scalper expansion.
Beautiful. Well, you know what, dude? That's like a perfect place to end it. All right. Perfect. So, Keegan, where can people find you on the internet?
Yes, I'm on. If you want a lot of Arkham content or just like other like board game content, my personal Instagram page is Foxbox Games. But box is BOCKS because BOX was taken. Because I guess Foxbox Games is an actual game company. But yeah, I'll be on there. And then also I live stream on Twitch, usually Arkham, and then other games on Tabletop Simulator, and speed runs of Hollow Knight. My Twitch name is Zero Dumpling Zero. But that's also my Instagram profile too. So it's there.
Okay.
All right, well, we will be sure to link all of Keegan's profiles in the description, so check that out. Keegan, it was awesome. Thanks a lot for being here, and we'll definitely make sure we have you on later to talk more card games.
Love being here and would love to come back again.
All right, awesome. All right. So thanks again, Keegan. Like I said, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun. And honestly, we're looking forward to having Keegan back on the show. That was a lot of fun. We had a really great time getting to know Keegan. Jim and I have been having a lot of fun in these episodes. Honestly, just getting to know a lot of people in the tabletop community. This is the third. Well, I guess technically it's the fourth interview that we've had. We did have my brother-in-law Michael on for our first community spotlight, and that was a blast too. But really, we're really enjoying getting to know a lot of people in the industry, and even right now, it's just mostly been creators, other content creators. But even so, it's really been it's a lot of fun conversing with people who you share this awesome hobby with. So Jim and I really are really having a really good time, just sharing these experiences and sharing the joy that we have had and found in the tabletop gaming space with a bunch of other people. So we really can't wait we look forward to having more and more conversations. Honestly, any people that I'm meeting in the industry that I'm just catching in a conversation with, I'm really inviting honestly a lot of people on the show just for us to just get to know and have a really great time on the show. So that being said, can't wait to next week for the next person we're gonna have on the show. And you know what? At this point I don't know what next week's gonna hold. But that just makes it that much more fun. So, in the meantime, you can find us. You can find Hobbies and Happiness on pretty much all social platforms. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. We still have yet to stream to YouTube and Twitch, but we're still working on a lot of the back end stuff to make that a viable possibility on our end. So looking forward to doing that. Obviously, you can find us on YouTube, Twitter. Like I said, we're on pretty much all social platforms. So links to all of those are down in the description below on YouTube and, of course, on all the podcasting platforms. So find those in the show notes to wherever you are listening. And